Hi, you're welcome to this short course on business idea creativity. No doubt about the fact that coming up with a unique business idea has often been a challenge for some people in comparison to some other people. There are some people out there, they have the resources, they have the time, but they couldn't come up with a unique business idea. And while there are people who are actually trying to get their foot on ground, they actually want to have something by the side to be able to support themselves, but the fact remains that they couldn't come up with a unique business idea that would help them in order to be able to thrive within the various existing industry. Sometimes ago, I spoke with a friend as well. He was in that category. He actually want to come up with a unique business idea, but when you take a close look at the various industries, you realize they appear so crowded, and coming up with something unique to penetrate those existing industries could sometimes be a challenge. So in this course, we're going to discuss how best one could come up with a unique business idea that can penetrate into existing industry, and thus you will be able to get yourself a supporting business that would keep you going. And when it comes to coming up with a unique business idea, creativity has a major role to play. Because in order for you to have a business that thrives in the various existing industries, you have to come up with something unique. You have to come up with something that's a little bit different, if not totally different from what's obtainable within the industry. So that's why business creativity has a major role to play. That is, having a creative concept towards business. Because that's the foundations of coming up with a unique business idea. And when you talk of business creativity, it's rooted down in the word creativity. That is, creativity has to do with creating something out of existing things. And generally, by default, every human is so blessed with the ability to be able to create things out of whatever it is that is in existence. But sadly, not every one of us have been able to tap into that aspect of our uniqueness and be able to harness our creativity concept. So in this short course, we're going to talk about coming up with a creative business concept. And it's going to be a program scheduled for 3 days, and I'm sure I hope you're going to enjoy it. So first, when it comes to creativity, there's one thing you need to understand. As I've earlier on mentioned, creativity has to do with creating something out of what is in existence. Let's take, for instance, we have a rectangle here. And this is more of a rectangle. I want to create something out of it. So all it has to do is, all I have to do is, I could just take a look at it. I could come up with another box, another rectangle. And from here, I've actually come up with a box. That's creativity. Out of this rectangle, I was able to create a box. So creativity has to do with being able to create something from what's in existence. And business creativity as well is based on that same concept, being able to take a close look at the industry, whichever industry you would want to go into, and be able to create something from what is in existence. And how do we go about that? Let's take, for instance, I want to go into any industry. The best approach, which I would always recommend for people to use, is the JER approach. I actually come up with this JER approach because it's a little bit easier to comprehend. Because no doubt about the fact that we are all familiar with vehicles, that is the mechanism behind which vehicles operate. First, when I go into the driver's seat of the vehicle, I start the car and I place it on gear 1. And immediately gear 1 begins to move, it gets to a point, I need to make a switch to gear 2 and make a switch to gear 3 and begin to accelerate. The same procedure can as well be used in coming up with a unique business idea. That is, in coming up with a creative business concept. When you want to go into any industry, the first thing you have to do is you need to learn about the industry. There has been instances in which people go into an industry, coming up with a business idea, go into an industry without learning about the industry. They don't learn about the top 5 industry, the top 5 companies or 10 companies that are actually thriving in the industry, and they don't learn about the companies that have actually failed in the industry. And thus, by default, they penetrate into the industry or into a business idea, and before you realize it, they wasted their time, they wasted their resources, and they couldn't actually be able to thrive within such industry. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, in going into this industry, what do I know about the industry? That's why the first thing you need to do is try as many as you can to take your time to learn about the industry. You want to as well first examine yourself, which of these industries around do I actually want to explore? Or which of the industries around do I actually want to build something around? And as soon as you're able to come up with such industry, then you want to take a step forward and as well ask yourself one fundamental question. What are the companies that are actually making edge within that industry? Then you want to come up with at least 5 or 10 business or companies that are actually thriving in your industry and examine them. What are they doing that makes them thrive? And those companies that have actually failed or that are actually in more of a stagnation state, you want to examine them and ask yourself what makes them to be in a state of stagnation. And to those who have actually backed out or who have actually, in which the business are in thriving, you want to ask yourself as well, why do they fail? Because one thing about coming up with a unique business idea is, when you learn about the companies that failed, you'll be able to learn from their failures. But when you focus majorly on those who are actually thriving, you might actually ignore what makes the other companies fail, and when you're going into such industry, you might fall into the same trap in which they fell into, and before you realize it, you might not be able to achieve your goal of thriving within the industry. So you want to ask yourself, what are those 10 companies or 5 companies that are actually thriving within your industry? Is it the 10 companies that are actually thriving, and as well the 10 companies that are actually not thriving? That is, let's take for instance 10 companies that are actually thriving, and you want to take a look at 1 or 5 companies that are actually not thriving. That's if you actually lose up to that, you want to see the non-thriving companies. And you want to examine them, what actually makes them not to thrive and what actually makes them thrive. Let's take for instance, if I want to go into an online marketplace, that is where people can actually buy things and actually sell things. No doubt about the fact that there are a lot of companies that are actually thriving within the online space, and there are some that are not thriving. So first, I want to take a look at those companies that are actually thriving. First, I'll take a look at Amazon. Because when it comes to online market space, you can't talk about online market space without talking about Amazon. You want to examine Amazon. What's actually making Amazon thrive? You want to learn about Amazon. You want to learn about those other companies. Take for instance, eBay. eBay as well is a good online market platform that is actually thriving. You want to ask yourself, what's making eBay thrive? And thirdly, you want to, let's say for instance, if I'm going into an online marketplace, I'm going to examine Amazon, I'm going to examine eBay, then I'm going to examine Otto. Otto is a very good company because of its own model. But when I take a look, when you learn about these three companies, you realize they actually operate on different logics. So that goes to, first, when you learn about the companies or the industry you want to go into, the online market space in this instance, or in this scenario generally, I learn about the online market space, then I take a step forward to as well examine the logic behind their business model. Because one thing about businesses that thrives and businesses that doesn't thrive is the fact that their logic, that is the model in which they operate, has a major role to play. So you want to get a close overview of the logic behind their business model. Until you understand the logic behind their business model, you might not be able to understand the rationales behind their thriving as well as behind the non-thriving in the case of those companies that are actually falling short within the industry. So now, let's take for instance, I want to examine eBay. First, I would go to eBay and examine their business. And they don't learn about the companies that have actually failed in the industry. And thus, by default, they penetrate into the industry or into a business idea. And before you realize it, they wasted their time, they wasted their resources, and they couldn't actually be able to thrive within such industry. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, in going into this industry, what do I know about the industry? That's why the first thing you need to do is try as much as you can to take your time to learn about the industry. You want to as well first examine yourself, which of these industries around do I actually want to explore? Or which of the industries around do I actually want to build something around? And as soon as you're able to come up with such industry, then you want to take a step forward and as well ask yourself one fundamental question. What are the companies that are actually making edge within that industry? Then you want to come up with at least 5 or 10 business or companies that are actually thriving in your industry and examine them. What are they doing that makes them thrive? And those companies that have actually failed or that are actually in more of a stagnation state, you want to examine them and ask yourself what makes them to be in a state of stagnation. And to those who have actually backed out or who have actually, in which the business are in thriving, you want to ask yourself as well, why do they fail? Because one thing about coming up with a unique business idea is, when you learn about the companies that failed, you'll be able to learn from their failures. But when you focus majorly on those who are actually thriving, you might actually ignore what makes the other companies fail. And when you're going into such industry, you might fall into the same trap in which they fell into. And before you realize it, you might not be able to achieve your goal of thriving within the industry. So you want to ask yourself, what are those 10 companies or 5 companies that are actually thriving within your industry? Is it the 10 companies that are actually thriving? And as well, the 10 companies that are actually not thriving. That is, let's take for instance 10 companies that are actually thriving, and you want to take a look at 1 or 5 companies that are actually not thriving. That's if you actually lose up to that, you want to see the non-thriving companies. And you want to examine them, what actually makes them not to thrive and what actually makes them thrive. Let's take for instance, if I want to go into an online marketplace, that is where people can actually buy things and actually sell things. No doubt about the fact that there are a lot of companies that are actually thriving within the online space, and there are some that are not thriving. So first, I want to take a look at those companies that are actually thriving. First, I'll take a look at Amazon. Because when it comes to online market space, you can't talk about online market space without talking about Amazon. You want to examine Amazon. What's actually making Amazon thrive? You want to learn about Amazon. You want to learn about those other companies. Take for instance, eBay. eBay as well is a good online market platform that is actually thriving. You want to ask yourself, what's making eBay thrive? And thirdly, you want to, let's say for instance, if I'm going into an online marketplace, I'm going to examine Amazon, I'm going to examine eBay, then I'm going to examine Otto. Otto is a very good company because of its own model. But when I take a look, when you learn about these 3 companies, you realize they actually operate on different logics. So that goes to, first, when you learn about the companies or the industry you want to go into, the online market space in this instance, or in this scenario generally, I learn about the online market space, then I take a step forward to as well examine the logic behind their business model. Because one thing about businesses that thrives and businesses that doesn't thrive is the fact that their logic, that is the model in which they operate, has a major role to play. So you want to get a close overview of the logic behind their business model. Until you understand the logic behind their business model, you might not be able to understand the rationales behind their thriving as well as behind the non-thriving in the case of those companies that are actually falling short within the industry. So now, let's take for instance, I want to examine eBay. First, I would go to eBay and examine their business logic. To the best of my ability, you realize that on eBay, eBay sells, nearly everything sellable. And when it comes to eBay generally, you realize that they have a good customer service relations. There's no two ways about that. If you examine eBay, you realize when you buy something on eBay and you have more like any query sort of, Amazon has a good customer service relations. When you buy something on Amazon, you don't necessarily have to be chasing them because they gives you the option. Either you shut them up or they call you immediately. So that's more like, that has a lot to do when it comes to their business model. And there are lots which you can easily examine. Let's take, for instance, if I'm going into online market space, I realized Amazon sells things that are sellable. Amazon has a good customer service relation. Amazon has other features which embody in its own business model. And that contributes to the reasons why it's thriving within the online market space. Now let's consider eBay. eBay gives opportunity for you to sell things which are new and as well sell things which are not new. And on Amazon, you don't sell things that are not new. You only sell products that are new. But on eBay, eBay gives you the opportunity to sell things which you've used, which you don't need, and you want to get, which you want to get some certain money back. You want to sell it in exchange for cash. You can actually do that on eBay. You can as well sell your new products as well on eBay. And one thing about eBay as well, eBay gives people the opportunity to bid for a product. But on Amazon, you don't have the opportunity to bid for a product. And when it comes to Hoto as well, Hoto now takes a step further to give you what Amazon as well as eBay isn't giving people, and that is the purchasing power. And at the time when I come up with this course, I realized I checked Amazon. Amazon has actually not been doing that, and eBay as well has actually not been doing that then. So Hoto gives purchasing power. That is, you have the opportunity to buy a product. And not only are you buying that product, they give you the purchasing power to be able to pay over a period of time. And in one way or the other, they're actually thriving within that industry as well, within that space. Now, let's take, for instance, if I want to come up with a unique business idea now, I can't just go straight ahead and begin to chase after Amazon. No. Because if I want to come up with an idea that would replicate Amazon in entirety, I would not be able to meet up with Amazon, because Amazon's business model has actually placed him on the edge. And before you realize it, if you're striving after Amazon, it might take you years while he keeps growing. And the same thing applicable to eBay. If you want to keep imitating, if you want to replicate eBay, it's going to take you years for you to be able to catch up with them. So, but you want to try, you want to survive within this industry. What do you need to do? Now, let's take, for instance, I want to come up with a unique business idea. All I just have to do is I set up an online space, an online market space, where people would be able to take, for instance, now, I take a look at Amazon, I take a look at Amazon, I take a look at eBay, I take a look at Hoto, and I ask myself a fundamental question. How do I create something out of these existing models? I want to penetrate into this industry. How do I go about it? You realize that none of these business models actually gave room for negotiation. Then I can come up with a business idea in which people will be able to negotiate products. And not only will they be able to negotiate products, they would as well be offered the liberty to have purchasing power. Let's take, for instance, I have a product, and that product is going for, let's say I have an online market space, and people came straight to my platform to want to sell their products. Let's assume an wholesaler who is selling on my platform, who bought a product at $150, but now on my platform he has actually placed it on the platform for $200. Then the next thing I can easily do is I'll look into this project. I'll give people the opportunity to negotiate this product. Be it someone who is an wholesaler or a retailer, you might want to consider how should I put it, the turnover. Now, if I'm negotiating, if someone is negotiating, someone negotiates, so can I pay $180? He might look and say, okay, this product has been on this platform for almost 2-3 months. I've actually not sold it. But now here is someone negotiating this product for $180. And what should I do? When puts into consideration the fact that the turnover has a major role to play in his business model, then he can go ahead and say, okay, take it for 180. Now he gains 30 euro and utilize it to keep running his business. And now, as soon as the person negotiates for 180 euro, then I take a step further and give the person the liberty, either to pay in full or to pay on instrumental. The person might take a close look at his or her purse and say, okay, I can actually pay 180 straight up. And he pays 180 straight up. The person, he smiles back home, and the wholesaler or the retailer smiles to his bank. The 30 euro has a major role to play, will play a role in his business. Now, on the other way around, he might like, okay, I want to pay on installment. Okay, if he's paying on installment, let's take for instance, he wants to pay over a period of 6 months, he wants to pay over a period of 7 months or whatever. Now, I could as well introduce, okay, if you are paying, you've negotiated, that's one power I gave to you. Then another power is you can pay over a period of time, but this time around, when you're paying, you would have to pay additional interest. It all depends, it could be 20%, it could be 30%, it could be 10% over whatever it is you agreed or you negotiated to pay. Before you realize it, or penetrate into the existing e-commerce or marketplace industry. And here we are, within 1, 2, 3 years, I will begin to dominate my own niche. And before you realize, when I begin to expand, sure, Amazon might not even know much about my business model in its entirety. I begin to work on other models within begin to scale within the online market space. And before you realize it, within an interval of 5 years, I've actually dominated my niche and I'm actually thriving on a very high scale. So that's how it goes. Coming up with a unique business model has a lot to do with being able to harness this creativity concept that is one being able to harness his or her creativity towards achieving his or her objective. And let's assume I don't want to go into an online market space. Let's say I want to go into a real estate business, a real estate platform, a platform where people can actually book their accommodations and all of that. A good example has to do with Airbnb. You realize shortly before Airbnb came into existence, there has never been any company that has such unique business concept of giving people the opportunity to let out their apartments. Because prior to then, people might be scared that, oh, why should a total stranger come into my apartment? I have a 3-bedroom flat. I have a a kitchen, and as well I have a general room. But I happens to be the only one living there, and I have this furnished. So what stops me from furnishing the third one and give it out to people whom I want to come into the city where I live on a short time? So that's the secret, and here Airbnb guys tap into it. And before you realize it, they're actually thriving. And that's why today, it's difficult for any company or any business, anyone who wants to replicate those guys to actually thrive in the same threshold as those guys, because they were able to understand or get a hook on the secrets behind the real estate as well as hospitality industry. Because one thing about the Airbnb is, Airbnb is actually not solving business or solving problem within the hospitality industry. They're actually solving problem both in the hospitality industry as well as in the real estate industry. Prior to Airbnb, if you want to book an appointment, if you want to go, let's take for instance, I'm going to another city, I'm going to another town, I just got a job there, I want to move into that town. First time I have to go to that town, speaks with the real estate agents on ground and see how best they can help me get an apartment or get an accommodation. But now this time around, you don't just have to do that. You just go to Airbnb. You click on Airbnb and search for an apartment. A short let, you could book an apartment for like 2 months or 3 months. Yeah, in some instances 6 months, and in some instances you could stay for 1 year or thereabout. But the good thing is you have the opportunity to book in advance and just go to that city. And right in that city, you will be able to check every other apartment. So it's as good as booking a hotel. And the good thing is, in Airbnb, the cost is kind of cheaper when it compares to the standard hotels, which is usually the hot cake within the hospitality industry. Or let's assume you're going for a business, or you're going for holiday. Like take for instance, I am going for holiday and I really don't have much to spend for my holiday. All I just have to do is, I would just go straight to Airbnb and book a short let, and before you realize it, I'll be able to enjoy my holiday. And don't be surprised, there are instances in which places where you'd like to go for holiday and where hotels are located are kind of far apart. And in those instances, you might not be able to enjoy the convenience of booking an hotel in a place that's far off from where you want to enjoy your vacation. But in this instance with Airbnb, you can actually have a room booked right away on the spot where you want to enjoy your holiday. Or proximity to where you want to enjoy your holiday. So, no doubt about the fact that Airbnb is able to thrive within the hospitality industry as well as real estate industry. So here Airbnb actually take a close look at the industry generally and see there's a secret here. And I think I could remember in one of the documentaries I read, in one of the documentaries of those guys I listened to, at first, some investors really don't want to invest in their model, their business concept, because they don't see it as something thriving. But those guys actually believe in these things because this is a secret. People don't know much about this. And when they move from one place to another, they were able to get good investors, and here they are, they're actually thriving fine within the real estate as well as hospitality industry. So no doubt about the fact that coming up with a unique business idea has a major role to play, and it helps you in order to be able to penetrate into any existing industry. So you want to take a close look and ask yourself, what is the logic behind the business model or behind the industries you want to go into? Examine the logic behind them in details and as well learn about the industry. And then you come up with your own unique business idea. So now, let's assume as a veteran self, if I want to come up with a unique business idea within the market space, I can always come up with a unique concept that will be able to thrive within the online market space in such a way that I would be able to penetrate easily and thrive, sustain success over a long period of time. So you as well want to come up with a unique business idea. Let's assume in the area of the real estate industry, that is, or hospitality industry, in which I mentioned here Airbnb. If I want to come up with something unique as well, I can actually come up with something unique that would be able to thrive in that industry. And before you realize it, I would get my foot on ground and begin to thrive. So no doubt about the fact that coming up with a unique business idea has a major role to do with you thriving or succeeding within any industry you choose to go into. So you want to ask yourself, what is the logic behind, as soon as you learn about the industry you want to go into, you want to ask yourself, what is the logic behind the business model of the top 5 or 10 companies within that industry? And secondly, you want to ask, those companies that are actually not thriving within the industry, what's their business model? Why are they not thriving? Then you want to ask yourself these fundamental questions to get to know much about those companies, learn from those who have actually succeeded, while at the same time learning from those who have actually fall short within the industry. And lastly, you want to reason out your own business model. You should be able to come up with a unique business model that will be able to thrive. And not until you understand the rationales or the logic behind the success of those companies and the logic or the rationales behind the failures of those non-thriving companies, you might not be able to come up with something unique as such. Except if your objective of entering into the industry isn't much to thrive, as much as just for you to just get by and get yourself going without need for you to establish your presence on the larger scope. Another interesting thing when it comes to business idea has to do with you understanding what business idea is all about, that is from the perspective of ecosystem. As I earlier mentioned, here Airbnb was able to see what other people do not see. And the same thing applicable to Amazon. Amazon was able to see what other people did not see. There was a time I was listening to a documentary of the guy behind Amazon, which I could refer to as the brain behind the business as well. You realize that first, there is internet. And he felt, okay, let me just go straight and start selling books online. And he actually went and started selling books. But here he is today because of his ability to create something, create a unique concept or create something which other people do not see. Then he was able to thrive, and long into the years, he's actually dominating the market space. So you want to ask yourself, what's the secret nature is not telling you? As regard Amazon, as regard Jeff in his own instincts, he was able to see the secret that, okay, people read books. And rather than people going to stores to be buying books, you can always save people time of going to the bookstores. He wants to give them the liberty to be able to shop online and have those books delivered to them. And that was the starting point. And here he is today. And when it comes to Amazon, Airbnb as well, those guys as well look and see, okay, it is possible for people to be able to, go, share their apartment with other people, get to know much about other people, and, be able to make money from it. Okay, take for instance, I went to Denmark some time ago, and when I was trying to book, I was looking for apartment to book, and I realized that I eventually found a place because coincidentally, my host has actually booked his own holiday trip. He was going with some of his friends. They were going somewhere to camp, and during that period, he wasn't going to use his room. And he has to give it out on the shortlet. And I met him. We interact. It was fun. He was a nice host. I was a nice guest, and from then we met. And if I'm to go to Denmark again, if there is any need, one could as well still reconnect or book the apartment or something. But the point is, shortly before then, people have been going on holidays and they've not been giving out their apartment. And shortly before Airbnb, people have empty rooms and they don't give it out. And people are searching for shortlet. And here Airbnb was able to see the secret as more of a nature secret, which is a combination with people's secret, and thus they come up with a unique business idea. So in order to come up with a unique business idea, it is important for one to understand this fundamental concept of nature's secret as well as people's secret. So you want to ask yourself, what's nature not telling you? And what's it that people are not telling you? And when you're able to take when you're able to take time to reason out these various concepts, before you realize it, you will actually be thriving as well. You will come up with something unique, and you will actually be thriving with a unique business concept. And before you realize it, you have your own business that's actually doing well within your choice of industry, and as well be able to help other people, perhaps those young out there who are looking for a job as well to kickstart their whole life. And before you realize it, you're contributing positively to the society, and at the same time smiling to bank, same as the guys in Amazon, the guys in Airbnb, same as they are smiling to banks while as well helping other people. So I hope you find this first day of this course very interesting. So now we're going to talk about the second aspect and as well as the third aspect of the course. And by the end of the course, I hope you find it so interesting and beneficiary, at least be able to come up, learn one or two things that will help you as well to be able to get your foot on ground and be able to thrive in whichever industry of choice you choose to go or delve into. So thank you so much. Hope to see you in the next course.